I am Christian Marshall, and in this video, I want to share with you what I learned from managing a multicultural team while working in the UK. It was a role that really opened my eyes to just how complex cross-cultural communication can be, but to also some of the assumptions that I've been carrying around about my own cultural identity without even realizing it. At the time, I was leading a team of over 40 people. 30 of them came from different cultural backgrounds. We had people from Poland, Nigeria, Russia, Ukraine, you name it. Each person brought their own values, communication styles, and expectations to the table. Now, on paper, that kind of diversity sounds like a big strength, and in many ways it was. But it also brought some very significant challenges that I hadn't anticipated. One of the first things I noticed was that people were struggling to collaborate effectively. And it wasn't just about language, though that played a significant part. It was about how people saw hierarchy, how they handled conflict, how they understood deadlines, or even what professional behavior looked like. I remember a clear example. One team member who came from a culture where authority is really rarely questioned would stay completely silent in meetings out of respect for me. Meanwhile, someone from a more egalitarian culture expected open dialogue, read that silence as passive aggressive or disengaged. These kinds of misunderstandings cause tension and sometimes open conflict. Looking back, I can see how theories like Hofstede's cultural dimensions were playing out in real time. I wasn't aware of this theory before, but having come to this cross-cultural class, this taught me to assess theories and look back at certain things that have happened in my career and look at them in a different light, particularly around individualism and versus collectivism and power distance. Some team members value group harmony and consensus. Others prize independence and speaking up. Neither was wrong, but not recognize that there's a difference often caused friction. I also saw Edward Hall's idea of high context and low context communication in action. Some people would say maybe when they really meant no, relying on tone and context. So others took everything literally, expecting directness. You can imagine the confusion that was created. Early on, I'll admit, I sometimes found myself frustrated. I think, why can't they just do things the same way that we do here? And that question says a lot. It assumes that the British or the Western way is the correct way, the default way. I never questioned that before, but the role of being a manager had forced me to. There were times I had to navigate difficult issues where cultural practices clashed with UK workplace policies or laws that raised tough questions. How do we respect a culture while still upholding universal standards like equality, safety, and fairness? I remember one case involving gender roles that sparked a lot of internal reflection. Where do we draw the line between respecting somebody's background and maintaining a safe, inclusive work environment? These experiences pushed me to think more deeply about cultural relativism versus universalism, about how we can hold space for different values while still standing by some shared, non-negotiable principles. A really important thing that I've learned in this class that has actually helped me reflect and kind of process something that I was seeing was Schwartz's theory of basic human values. He talks about three big dimensions that cultures use to navigate the world. Embeddedness versus autonomy, hierarchy versus egalitarianism, mastery versus harmony. These played out clearly in my team. For example, people from embedded cultures were, where tradition, loyalty, and group belonging are strong, often wanted to make decisions as a team. Those from a more autonomous culture were more comfortable acting independently or challenging the group. What one person was seen as being collaborative, another might be seen as being indecisive. And what felt like being honest feedback to one person might come across as blunt or disrespectful to somebody else. Understanding what these value systems were has now helped me stop labeling behavior as right or wrong and instead ask, what values is this person expressing? What really matters to them? Through this class, looking back, that shift has changed everything for me in terms of managing people. As I've said, being a manager and through this course, I've learned quite a bit about myself. Before I took on a role as a manager, I'd have told you I was open-minded, extremely professional, but I never really questioned what that meant. or where those ideas came from. I realised I've been shaped by a particular cultural context, British, Western, middle class. My views on hierarchy, punctuality, gender roles, even how to handle emotions at work, those weren't just normal, they were cultural. I used to think that keeping things professional meant staying emotionally neutral. But some of my team members came from cultures where building emotional connections, was how you build trust. My version of professionalism sometimes came across as cold or distant. My team couldn't really engage with me, that we couldn't find some familiar playing field. Becoming aware of what was uncomfortable, but also transformative. I stopped seeing myself as a neutral leader and started seeing myself as someone with a cultural lens, just like everybody else. One thing I want to do from this course is, if I go back into a management profession, is, I do want to lead differently. I want to have open discussions about cultural expectations. I want team members to share their own preferences and traditions instead of enforcing a top-down set of norms and that we've co-created for them. I also want to be more curious. I want to listen more. I want to ask better questions. I want to learn to navigate cultural conflict by looking for root causes, not just by assuming bad intent. Um, Most of all, I need to stop expecting total harmony. A multicultural team is not always going to be comfortable, and that's okay. Discomfort can be a sign of growth as long as it's met with respect and a willingness to understand. So, in conclusion, this course has really helped me reflect and look back. And I don't just want to say that for bonus marks or anything like that. Like, I've taken a lot of this on board that I think will help me further down the line in my career. Um, this has taught me about others. It's changed the way, in some ways, the way I look at myself. Culture isn't something that other people have. We all have it. Once you realize that, your entire approach to leadership, teamwork, and communication shifts. I'm going to learn to lead with more humility, more awareness, and more empathy. And, I'm still learning and I will continue to learn every day. Thank you for listening.